time, Brad. You sure? I can go longer, Jeremy. Losing a lot of time to the guys that have pitted. Maybe give me one more. Tight fuel. We are on fuel here, James, because we were not ready to leave.
And what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Historic Hot Laps. I'm your host, Alex Daniels. Had a busy one. We got a lot of stuff to cover here, so let's get after it. Kicking off with some race recap, we had IndyCar at Road America, Indy NXT. Stage was set Sunday, June 22nd, Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. A very warm, sunny afternoon. Championship favorite Dennis Hogger grabbed the pole, and from there it seemed like business as usual for Hogger. Hogger controlled the early stages. He led the first half of the 20-lap race, keeping Calais behind him in his mirrors. Turning point came with fewer than 5 laps to go on lap 16. Calais made his move, clean outside past turn 1, took the lead over from there. He pulled a clear checkered flag win by 1.71 seconds. Clay's performance was textbook, precision. He abided his time and just got it done, executed flawlessly. Post-race comments, he just said, "We kept working hard. We need to keep pushing." And that determination really paid off for him. Behind Clay, championship leader Hogger managed to hold second despite a late slide that kind of got him out of shape there a little bit. His podium finish extended his lead in the standings, though his margin over rookie teammate Hughes narrows as they exchange wins over and over. Hughes delivered strong pace in the final laps, overtaking Pearson for the final podium spot. Solid drive from everybody. Hughes now sits firmly in podium contention for the season. Further back, we had Pearson end up in 4th, tying his best career finish in the NXT series, while Miles Rowe finished in a respectable 5th place, rounding out the top 5. Couple key takeaways from this race. Rowe's top 5 reaffirms Able Motorsports' pace. They've definitely got the potential to keep going for some good wins and whatnot. Clay's first win put HMD back in the spotlight. They finally overcame the Andretti dominance that they've had. Hogger remains the points leader, but the gap is tightening. Hughes and Calais breathing real close to Hogger's neck on that one. We've got Mid-Ohio coming up for these guys on July 6th, so we'll cover that when the time comes, but Calais already has the history there, and momentum will be on his side with this win. Hopefully he can claim a second win, or will Hogger say enough's enough and gain control? I guess we'll see. Moving from there, we have the big boys over there at IndyCar. We talked about the NXT. Let's talk about IndyCar Series. Going into this weekend, Team Penske had an average of 13.5 on their finishes for the season, which is the worst start to the season since 1999 for Penske. Program's clearly struggling. Qualifying was not all what anyone would really expect. Ones that came to play this week were RLL and their own rookie in the drop light number 45 car, Louis Foster, as he gained the pole. First time rookie's taken pole, I believe, since the Indy GP of 2021, if that's the correct stat. Huge moment for Foster and that team. So let's talk about the 55-lap tour through the 4-mile circuit at Elkhart Lake. Probably the most chaotic race of the season so far in 2025. Championship leader Alex Palou claimed his 6th win of the season. He got another one. Dramatic fashion. A lot of fuel strategies, tight fuel numbers, things like that. A ton of late race yellow flags. On a late initial restart, chaos erupted. Scott Dixon started P25, fought back to the front. He actually led 20 laps before running dry near the end, making an emergency splash and go. More yellow flags for incidents and spins disrupted the rhythm. It became a survival race, really, of who could manage the fuel and avoid Calamity Corner. In the final stint, Palou stretched his fuel perfectly. Ganassi called it flawlessly, saving just enough to limp to the finish and secure the win. So final results, first place, Alex Palou, 6th win in 9 races, which is insane. Second, we saw Meyer Shank get back up on the podium with Felix Rosenquist. He jumped to P2 after strategic moves and benefiting from some late yellows. Third place, another awesome one to see, Santino Ferrucci. That's his 2nd podium of the season. 4th place, Kyle Kirkwood, the only other winner we've seen this year, sitting there in 4th. And Marcus Armstrong rounded out the top 5 in 5th place. So overall, pretty awesome. Palou now leads the standings with 386 points, which is 93 points above Kirkwood, and 111 points clear of Pato, who's in 3rd. So pretty insane points lead for the championship there. Honda extended its dominance, 183 points ahead of Chevrolet with this victory in the Manufacturers' Championship because they've won every single race. So pretty wild that the manufacturer who's looking to possibly, leave IndyCar has won every single race this season. So I guess we'll see what happens with all that. There was 5 cautions that shook up the race flow on this one, created constant strategy recalculations. Just a crazy sprint and a chess match all at the same time. Palou obviously getting it done, running a Ganassi split strategy playbook with Barry Wanzer, and the Honda power on the road courses just took him to the win. So looking ahead for Mid-Ohio, obviously Palou is going to go in with all the momentum. I imagine there'll be some more fuel gambling going on at Mid-Ohio. And yeah, keep tabs on Rosenquist as well, because he's been known to get on hot streaks when he gets some podiums. So we'll see what happens with all that. This takes us to NASCAR Pocono Truck Series, Miller Tech Battery 200. 23-year-old Lane Riggs rolled off in pole position in the Front Row Motorsports Ford. But early on, it was all Corey Heim. Championship leader looked unstoppable, leading 48 of 90 laps and grabbing his record-setting 12th stage win of the season. But we're at the tricky triangle. Just under 20 laps to go. Heim's day unraveled. He had a flat right rear tire under caution, forced him to pit from the lead. This opened the door for Cup Series regular Carson Hocevar, who surged ahead at the restart, only to get black flagged for jumping the restart. That left Riggs in the rightful control car spot and in command, and from there, he never looked back. Riggs led the final 20 laps, crossed the line 3.6 seconds ahead of Tanner Gray to score his first win of the season and third of his career. Kind of a redemption race in its purest form. After wrecking in practice and finishing last at Pocono last year, Riggs turned heartbreak into hardware this year. Got it done. Behind him, we had Caden Honeycutt, Brandon Jones, and Daniel Hemrick rounding out the top 5. Heim salvaged a 23rd place finish. He still holds the commanding points lead for sure heading into Lime Rock Park, which is awesome that they're going there next week. So keep an eye on that. Moving up to Xfinity, we had a Hall of Famer calling shots from the pit box. It was the Explore Pocono Mountains 250, and all eyes were on Chase Elliott, who started from the pole and led the most laps. But as we've learned time and time again, leading early doesn't mean you'll lead last. The race saw its share of chaos. Spins from Daniel Dye, Brandon Jones, multi-car pileups in Stage 2. A ton of late race cautions that really shuffled the deck. But through it all, one name took the top honor, and that was Connor Zilisch, who had Dale Earnhardt Jr. stepping in as interim crew chief for that number 88 JR Motorsports team. Zilisch played the long game after winning Stage 2 and staying in the mix all day. He made the decisive move in the final lap, slipping under Jesse Love after restart and never looked back. Zilich's second win of the season, his first on an oval, proving he's more than just a road course driver. Behind him, you had Jesse Love, Christian Eckes, Chase Elliott, and Ryan Sieg, all rounding out the top 5 there. And let's not forget about the fact that Dale Earnhardt Jr. went 1 for 1 as a crew chief now. Obviously, that team kind of knows what to do, but calling strategy, catching tires, and guiding the driver to victory lane. So not bad for his one-off gig there. Hopefully we see him on the pit box again. I know he had a blast. He talked about it on his podcast and how much fun he had. So hopefully we see a little more of that.
Man, it's tough. I racing for a win, like, the saying, I'd wreck my mom for a win. It's tough because you don't want to have to go hang out on Monday and him be mad at me, but at the same time, a win is a win. And, if it's for 5th place or whatever, I might be a little bit nicer than most, than other guys. But for the win, I'm going to race everyone like I want to win. And that's kind of just the bottom line. And he would do the same. And I expect the same out of him, right? At Watkins Glen, 2 years ago or whatever, he shipped me out of the way for the win. And I was trying not to, right? I wanted to race him clean and give him a shot and not give him a shot, but give him a chance to, race me. But, he got a little bit loose off of 3 and I was able to sneak under him. And I had the better car today for sure. We've had really fast junior motorsports cars lately. The Hendrick Engine Shop's doing an incredible job and we've been really fast in all aspects. And it was just a matter of time when I got up into the top 3 with the 16 and the 2 where I was going to be able to sneak by and make a move and it just took one little mistake from Jesse and I was able to squeeze by without any chaos or contact.
So let's talk about the Cup race itself. This one's pretty awesome to see. After a year and a half, 2 years, we saw that number 19 Joe Gibbs Toyota catch a victory as Chase Briscoe won the Great American Getaway 400, locking himself into the playoffs, scoring his first win of the season and his first win at Pocono by a pretty tight margin of 0.6 seconds over his teammate Denny Hamlin, who's got technically 8 wins there at Pocono. So let's talk about a few things. Pole sitter Denny Hamlin, true to form, earned his record-breaking pole with a lap speed of 172.599. We saw 11 lead changes among 9 drivers, 7 cautions over 31 laps. Just a lot of stuff for strategic roller coasters, but that's what the Tricky Triangle is known for. Briscoe led a race high of 72 laps, took stage 2, executed fuel strategy to perfect on the final restart. Showing good throttle control and hanging to cling to the lead there and just keeping guys behind him. And a lot of that's the aerodynamics on these cars once you get to that point. But he made it happen, and Hamlin tried, but just didn't have enough for him. Briscoe now joins the rest there in the playoffs, making it even tighter for those to try to point their way in. We still show William Byron as the regular season points leader, 54 points clear of Kyle Larson for the regular season championship. But we've got other names, Hamlin and Blaney coming in strong. Hamlin with another podium, fresh off his baby duty weekend. JGR just dominated this pole, top 2 finish. No matter what came at them, they had control of this race. Notably, though, another thing that was kind of interesting in a JGR piggyback operation, but 2311 had some severe brake failures with Riley Herbst and Bubba Wallace. I believe all 3 cars had brake issues at one point or another, but those ones were pretty severe. So kind of interesting that they struggled, but the JGR cars did so well. Next weekend, we're talking about Atlanta. So yeah, that's a pretty good shakeup in the playoffs. So we'll see what comes of it at the next one. There's also 6 hours at the Glen for IMSA at Watkins Glen. 6-hour classic, multi-class mayhem, pit lane precision, whatever you want to call it. So let's just start at the top. GTP class, number 93 Accurate from Meyershank Racing, piloted by Vander Zante, Yaloli, and rookie Oda. They delivered pretty flawless performance there. Vander Zante set the tone early on. He had a record-breaking qualifying lap, and then the trio backed it up with a dominant run, making their way through traffic, running all the right strategy, and a full course yellow at the end took them to the win. So congrats to them on that one. You had the number 31 Whelen Cadillac of Aiken, Bamber, and Vesti behind them. They just couldn't quite close the gap. LMP2 at AO Racing's number 99 Spike the Dragon. After an engine failure in practice, they stormed back to take pole and held off TDS Racing to claim the honors in their class. Pretty awesome comeback from AO Racing on that one. GTD Pro, you saw Pfaff Motorsports in their number 9 Lamborghini, the Plaid Machine, finally cashed in and got one. They held off all the Z06 Corvettes and the Vassar Sullivan Lexus, so congrats to them on that. And in GTD class, it was pretty much a dogfight with the AWA Corvette as it clawed its way up to the finish, but it was the number 57 Windward Racing Mercedes that actually took the win. Had a monster run going into the end of that. So congrats to all those teams and all those classes. Did a great job. Watkins Glen's always a blast to watch. USAC National Sprint Weekend had a half-mile hammer known as Port Royal Speedway in Pennsylvania. You had National Sprint Car Series, which Justin Grant put on a masterclass after chasing down Briggs Danner, who led the first half of the race. Grant made his move with 12 laps to go and never looked back. His 4th win of the season, 58th career USAC Sprint Car victory, inching him closer to one of the greatest of all times. Oh, and he did it in a record time, 30 laps in just under 11 minutes, caution-free. So pretty insane to see that.
Yeah, just honestly, the track just had changed so much. Normally, you can you get to going on the cushion. I feel like I do, and I kind of pick it apart the first few laps and get settled in, and then really just hammer what I'm doing. And it was every couple laps it was changing, and never for the good. It was getting harder every time, and I getting by Briggs there was just hoping to catch him in lap traffic, and I knew I could make pretty good. I could kind of catch myself in the middle off of 2 there if I ran like that real soft slider across there, and so I kind of was hoping I could get to him with a run off of 4 behind lap traffic one time, and it worked out really good, because other than that I don't really know what I was going to do, but it worked out, and we got our NOS Energy drink, Top Motorsports, MPV Logistics, Indy Custom Stone, Pro Source number 4 into victory lane. And
also in USAC, we had Silver Crown Series. Jason Pursley, after hitting the wall in qualifying, they thrashed to get him back on track, and he did him right. Pursley took the lead from Grant on lap 3, and the rest is history after that. Survived 2 restarts, held off a stacked field, and grabbed his first Silver Crown win of the season. We also had the World of Outlaws, World of Outlaws, High Banks of Hooset Speedway, Bull Ring at I-55. Friday night, Brandon, South Dakota. Sprint cars took to the Speedway for a $20,000 to win showdown. Garrett Williamson and Bill Balog led the field to green, but it was Balog who stole the spotlight. Fierce early battles. Balog took command, never looked back, slicing through lap traffic with precision. Williamson made a late charge, but Balog had clean air and took the checkered flag there. He parked in victory lane, proving once again that experience and control are a deadly combo. And he should have so many more wins considering the amount of time he's had in the series. He's an old timer now in that series and just doesn't have the stats, but he's coming on strong last year and this year. So congrats to him and that team over there.
I'm at a loss of words and out of breath. That track was not what I thought it would be, with the cushion being that choppy and that low. And I thought the bottom would be good early, like the first few laps, and Bill circled me right away. And he's been so good here, and to go up against him and beat him here is special. And against everyone here, I feel like we had every good sprint car driver in the country here, so to beat all of them is just an incredible feeling. I don't know what to say. Dylan is so incredible at what he does that I'm so lucky I don't have to race against him, and I'm so lucky to have him in my corner. And
finally, the last one we want to cover this week, High Limit Sprints. High Limit Sprints midweek series. They rolled into Eagle Raceway in Nebraska for the Eagle Nationals. Buddy Kofoid put on a clinic on that one. Starting from the pole, he led all 40 laps, holding off a late charge from Anthony Macri, and won the $55,000 payday. And that's just a statement. That's not just a win. But also Kyle Larson was back in the number 57 car, but his night ended up early in a multi-car pileup on lap 28. And Carson Macedo, Chase Randall were also caught up in that chaos, which really shakes up the points and the podium for this one. As always, we ask if you do enjoy this show, please like, share, subscribe. We're on all the socials. We're back on TikTok now. Share with your friends, leave us a comment, do whatever we can to help out this algorithm and keep us going here at Historic Hot Laps. Let's hit some quick news stories while we're talking here. Formula One news, the Canadian Grand Prix. Yes, the same race we were upset and I was talking the schedule about last week. Well, it has been renewed by F1 and announced it will continue on the schedule through 2035. And I've got to know why Formula One is just everything's going on like a 10-year extension, and I don't understand it. They're just planning that far ahead. I don't know if they're trying to keep this North America momentum, but I mean, it seems like it's been everywhere. They've been renewing races all past 2030, which is crazy. When you think about it, 5-6 years down the road, who knows what's going to happen with the series, right? But apparently they're going to be in Canada through 2035 there at Montreal. So touching on something over at NASCAR, Carson Osvar made some extremely negative comments about Mexico City on a live social media video, brought some waves, and he was fined $50,000 from Spire Motorsports. And they're also going to make him take some sensitivity classes, cultural sensitivity, something like that. Not a good look for the young driver who's already a hothead. And, you know, he's kind of old school NASCAR, and I appreciate that to a point, but until you start stacking up wins, you can't really act like the intimidator, right? So he's definitely getting there. I think he'll get some more respect as he goes, but man, the dude's got to chill the hell out. Finally, a little bit of IndyCar. They announced that the 2028 deadline now for the new car, which will be built by Dallara, it'll be 85 to 100 pounds lighter than the current car, and the engine will be a 2.4 liter twin turbocharged engine, which is just 0.2 liters bigger than the current motor. They didn't say anything about horsepower or hybrid capabilities or any of that so far, and obviously pushing it out another year on the development side. So kind of interesting. We'll see how that all shakes up. Right, this week on our history portion, we're going to talk about British racing motors. They were founded in the Second World War by Raymond Mays, who had built several hill climb and road racing cars under the ERA brand before the war. He also was joined by Peter Berthon, a longtime associate of his, pre-war successes. And he had access to pre-war Mercedes-Benz and Auto Union design documents, which inspired him to build an all-British Grand Prix car for the post-war era as a national prestige project with financial and industrial backing from the British motor industry and its suppliers channeled through a trust fund. So pretty good start there. It was a different kind of unknown way of organizing and financing the project, and some of the backers withdrew. Disappointed the team's slow progress and early results. it fell to one of the partners in the trust, Alfred Owen, of the Rubery-Owen group of companies. Owen, whose group primarily manufactured car parts, took over the team in its entirety. Between 1954 and 1970, the team entered its works Formula One car under the official name of Owen Racing Organization. Berthon and Mays continued to run the team on Owen's behalf into the 1960s before it was handed over to Louis Stanley, the husband of Sir Alfred's sister, Jean Owen. This gets real complicated when you talk about the British family hierarchies and whatnot, but let's talk about their V16 powered Type 15. The factory was set up in Spalding Road, Lincolnshire, behind the Eastgate House, Mays' family home, in a building called the Maltings. Several people involved in the ERA returned to the firm to work for BRM, including Harry Mundy and Eric Richter. The team also had access to a test facility at Folkestone Aerodrome in the UK. The first post-war rules for the top-level motor racing allowed for a 1.5-liter supercharged or 4.5-liter normally aspirated engine. BRM's first engine design was an extremely ambitious 1.5-liter supercharged V16. Rolls-Royce was contracted to produce centrifugal superchargers rather than the more commonly used Roots-style superchargers. The design concept of the V16 had not been used extensively on automobiles before, so the design problems were many, and the engine did not fire for the first time until June of 1949. It proved to be outstandingly powerful, but its output was produced over a very limited range of engine speed, coming on suddenly if the throttle was applied carelessly, resulting in wheel spin as the narrow tires provided unable to transfer the power to the road. So a little more engine than they could handle, right? This made the car very touchy to drive. Engineer Tony Rudd was seconded to BRM from Rolls-Royce to develop the supercharging system and remained involved with BRM for nearly 20 years following that. The Type 15, which was a designation for the V16 car, won the first two races it actually started, the Formula Libre and Formula One events at Goodwood in September of 1950, driven by Red Parnell. However, it was never to be successful again. The engine proved unreliable and difficult to develop, and the team were not up to the task of improving the situation. A string of failures caused much embarrassment. The problems were still unsolved when the new Commission Sportive Internationale announced in 1952 that for 1954, a new engine formula of 2.5 liters naturally aspirated or 750cc supercharged would take effect. Meanwhile, the organizers of all the Grand Prix counting for the World Championship elected to run their races for Formula 2 for the next 2 years, as Alfa Romeo had pulled out of racing and BRM were unable to present race-worthy cars, leaving no creditable opposition to Ferrari other than outdated Lego Talbos and the odd OSCA. The V16s continued to race in minor Formula One races and the British Formula Libre events until the mid-50s. They battled with Tony Vandervelde's thin-wall special Ferrari 375, being a particular highlight of the British scene back in the day. They moved on from there. The Type 25 was BRM's next car. It was used extremely over-square design, 2.5-liter atmospheric four-cylinder engine designed by Stuart Treslian, and it arrived late, took a lot to develop. It was so late that the Owen organization started the 2.5-liter formula with a Maserati 250F engine. P25 was initially unsuccessful, not winning a race until the victory at the Dutch Grand Prix of 1959. Colin Chapman helped to improve the car in 1956. Sterling Moss believed that the BRM engine was superior to the Coventry Climax unit used in his Cooper, and the P25 was briefly run in 1959 by British Racing Partnership for Moss, and Rob Walker also backed the construction of the Cooper BRM to gain access to the engine. The P25 became highly competitive. Just as a rear-engine Cooper started to become dominant, the P48 was a quick reaction to this, using major components from the P25, but in a rear-engine format. The P48 was revised for the 1.5-liter rules in 1961, but once again, BRM's own engine was not ready, and the cars had to run with the Coventry Climax four-cylinder until it adapted the P48 chassis, achieving very little in terms of results. The firm moved to a purpose-built workshop on an adjoining site in the spring of 1960, but when the 1.5-liter atmospheric Formula One regulation was introduced in 1961, Alfred Owen was threatening to pull the plug unless race victories were achieved very soon. By the end of 1961 season, BRM had managed to build an engine designed by Peter Berthon and Aubrey Woods, the BRM P56 V8, which was on par with the Dino V6 used by Ferrari, and the Coventry Climax V8 used by other British teams. However, the real change was the promotion by Owen of an engineer who had been with the team since 1950, and that was Mr. Tony Rudd, to the position of Chief Development Engineer. Rudd was the first professional engineer to exercise full technical control over the team, and basic engineering and reliability problems which had plagued the team for years began to vanish. He was a super huge asset to the team. He was given greater responsibility in 1960 after two of the drivers, Graham Hill and Dan Gurney, went on strike and told Alfred Owen they would not drive again. And in early 1962, full executive authority was given to Tony Rudd, Raymond Hayes, and Peter Berthon were sidelined. The team had designed their first mid-engine car for 1960, matching the other teams, and won the World Drivers' Championship. Graham Hill is a driver in 1962 with the P57. During 1962, BRM also ran Lucas electronic ignition. During 1965, with the 210 base horsepower, 11,000 RPM was rated power there, which is crazy to think of. However, at the high speed, at Monza Italian Grand Prix, an uprated version that raced with 220 horsepower at 11,750 RPM was planned, and a planned 4-valve per cylinder version in cooperation with Westlake Engineering was never actually materialized. So they had all these plans to do this crazy stuff, and it never actually happened. As part of Owen's attempt to make BRM pave its way through Formula One, the V8 engine was sold to privateers and appeared in a number of other chassis during the 1.5-liter Formula time, particularly private Lotus chassis and smaller marques such as BRP. A group came together, acquired in 1961 and 1962 BRMs during this period. The monocoque BRM P261 V8 car was soon developed after this, and these ran through the 1.5-liter Formula time, performed useful service in the early races of the subsequent 3-liter Formula time. In 1965, Jackie Stewart was signed to partner with Hill. He took his first Grand Prix win at Monza in his debut season and won the first World Championship race of the new 3-liter Formula with the car fitted with a Tasman 2-liter V8. Once again, BRM was not ready for the start of the new Formula, and the old cars continued to be used even on occasion after the H16 was ready. So they really struggled to get their production out, pretty much their entire legacy here. For 1966, the engine regulations changed to permit 3-liter atmospheric or 1.5-liter supercharged engines. BRM refused Peter Berthon and Aubrey Wood's proposal to build a V12. Instead, built an ingenious but very complicated engine designed by Tony Rudd and Jeff Johnson. The H16, the BRM P75, which essentially used two flat 8 engines derived from their 1.5-liter engine, one above the other, with crankshafts geared together. Much like you see in an H4 pattern these days. BRM liked the H16 because it was initially planned to share design elements and components with the successful 1.5-liter V8. While the engine was powerful, it was also heavy and unreliable. Rudd claimed that his drawings were not followed accurately, and many of the castings were much thicker and heavier than he had specified for. When Lotus, for example, the story goes that when Lotus took delivery of their very first H16 engine, it took 6 men to carry it from the van to the workshop. That time, BRM earned the nickname of British Racing Misery. BRM, Lotus, and various private organizations had been using enlarged versions of the BRM 1.5 V8 for up to the 2.1 liter in 1966, as competitive 3-liter engines were in short supply in the very first year of the new regulations. Lotus also took up the H16 as an interim motor until the Cosworth DFV was ready, building the Lotus 43 to house it. And Jim Clark managed to win the U.S. Grand Prix at Watkins Glen with this combination. It was the only victory this engine would have had in a championship race. Lotus built a similar Lotus 42 designed for Indianapolis with a 4.2-liter version of the H16, but this was never race-worthy. The cars raced with Ford V8s instead. From there, they took that H16 engine, redesigned it with a narrow-angle 4-valve head and magnesium main castings to reduce the weight and increase power, but it was never raced. It was intended to go in the BRM P115s in 1967. BRM decided to use a V12 unit, which was being sold to the other F1 sports car teams, encouraging results from those. So the H16 was replaced by the V12, designed by Jeff Johnson. It had been intended purely for sports car use, but was first used in F1 by McLaren in the M5A, and from there it took charge in 1967. The 2-valve layout gave about 360 horsepower at 9,000 RPMs, increased it to 390 horsepower in 1968 at 9,750 RPMs. Jeff Johnson just kept updating this design, adding a 4-valve head based on the H16 design, which got us up to 485 horsepower at 10,500 RPMs and so on. So they just kept making more and more results from it, getting it up to about 12,000 RPMs at one point and 490 horsepower, which those cars sounded incredible. The design and building of the first V12 chassis, the P126, was contracted to former Lotus and Eagle designer Len Terry's Transatlantic Automotive Consultants Group. The cars first appeared during the 1968 Tasman Championship, powered by the 2.5-liter versions of the engine. Temporary team driver Bruce McLaren winning the 4th round of the series at Taronga, but being generally unimpressed with the car, BRM themselves built further examples of the Terry design, which were designated P133 and 1968 team drivers Mike Spence and Pedro Rodriguez. They appeared to be competitive in the early season, non-championship races at Silverstone, but Spence was killed driving the Lotus 56 turbine during qualifying at Indianapolis. Spence's replacement, Richard Atwood, finished a good second to Graham Hill's Lotus at Monaco, but after the results went downhill and the season petered out. For 1969, the 4-valve per-cylinder engine was developed and a new slimline car, the P139, was built. John Surtees joined the team, lead driver backup by Jack Oliver. Rodriguez was shunted into the semi-works Parnell team. Surtees' time at BRM was not a happy one, and despite the fact that the ground effect wing car was designed, this was never constructed and the team's performance was lackluster. Surtees left after a single season, along with Tony Rudd, who went on to Lotus, and Jeff Johnson, who departed for Austin Morris. They continued to shake things up for a few years, had a few more things go in 1972, the World Championship victory race. Their last World Championship victory came when Jean Pierre drove a stunning race with the rain-affected 1972 Monaco Grand Prix in the P160. He also won the non-championship 1972 World Championship victory race. Later that year, the 1972 campaign was pretty chaotic, having acquired major sponsorship of Marlboro cigarettes, being the first team in his category sponsored by the brand. Louis Stanley originally planned for the fields of up to 6 cars, 3 for established drivers, 3 for paying journeymen and young drivers, varying designs including the P153, P160s, and P180s, and actually ran up to 5 for a mix of paying and paid drivers until it became obvious that it was completely overstretched. Team sponsors insisted that the team be cut back to a more reasonable level, and only 3 cars were run in 1973. At the end of the year, Marlboro transferred sponsorship to McLaren from 1974 and staying with the team until 1996. So the last notable performance was second place finish in 1974 South African Grand Prix when Mike Pilbeam designed the P201, very different kind of Coke bottle shape, Southgate car. Owen's organization ended its support of the team, and it ran a lower key basis by Louis Stanley and some of the Bourne personnel at Stanley BRM until 1977. Later on there in the late 70s, serial millionaire and amateur racer John Jordan purchased some of the team's assets when the team finally folded and backed the building of a pair of P230 cars by CTG with the aim of competing in a national level Aurora AFX Formula One Championship. Teddy Pallette raced the P207 during 1978 with modest success, finishing 4th at the Oulton Park and 5th at Brands Hatch. One chassis also apparently raced at the revived Can-Am series. So they kind of folded up there at the end, and things kind of got a little hectic. As far as the BRM engines, the Owens organization expected BRM to turn a profit through sale of racing engines. The 4-cylinders appeared briefly in the Cooper BRM specials for Sterling Moss, but they found no other customers. The V8-powered 1.5-liter cars, including various private Lotuses, BRM Works team cars, appeared here and there. A couple of the 1.9 to 2.1 liters were very popular in 1966. Full 3-liter engines were widely available, so those kind of went by the wayside. These units were also sold to Matra to power its early sports prototypes. 1-liter Formula 2 engine was also made available based on half of the F1 V8. This was not successful once again in the formula dominated by the Cosworth Ford and eventually by Honda engines. Team Lotus used the ill-fated H16 motor to score only 1 win. V12s are sold to other constructors, to which most notable were Cooper, John Weir, and McLaren. Matra entered into its contract with BRM to collaborate in the design for their own V12 engine, but when this became public knowledge, the French constructor was forced to drop the involvement with BRM and restart development with a French partner as its government funding was threatened. But there were still close resemblances between the finished Matra engine and the BRM engine. So, man, there's a lot of stuff. Thank you, Wikipedia, for having some info on these guys and their history. Notable drivers for this group: You had Joe Bonnier, Tony Brooks, Ron Flockhart, Dan Gurney, Graham Hill, Mike Hawthorne, Nicky Lauda, Reg Parnell, Clay Rigzani, Pedro Rodriguez, Harry Schell, Joe Seifert, Jackie Stewart, John Surtees, we talked about a bunch, Jean-Pierre Beltois, and Maurice Tringent. So just a ton of notable drivers that went on to have huge success in other manufacturers and engine makers. A Constructors' Championship, they only have one to their name in 1962. Same with Drivers' Championship, one to their name, 1962. That was kind of their prime year. Race victories, 17 overall, pole positions, 11. They made the fastest lap 15 times, which is kind of cool. And their final entry as a manufacturer/team was the 1977 Italian Grand Prix. So that wraps that up. Another good one, another history lesson for all of us there. I didn't know most of that or a lot of those drivers that actually were part of that team. So as always, thank you. Please like, share, subscribe. Appreciate the listens. If you know somebody else who's into motorsports and would like it, please share it with them. Other than that, we'll come at you again next week with another one, more race recaps and everything else. And until then, stay safe and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for sharing your time with us. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us at Historic Hot Laps on X and all your other social platforms for the latest updates and sneak peeks into upcoming episodes. You can reach out to us directly at historichotlaps@gmail.com. Send us your feedback, questions, comments, opinions, and additional subject matter you'd like us to cover. Thanks for tuning in.